So hello fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728 and the Smiths and the Falwells. I hope that what's happening with these two couples, these two families, that it might push the needle with respect to women's sexuality and their freedoms, with respect to people judging them poorly for expressing themselves sexually, I guess is the way that it has been put in the past. Let's take a look at if what has happened with these two couples, if it were flipped, if Jada Pinkett Smith was not the person who we know had sex in the Smiths' marriage. Would it be much of a story, or as much of a story, or would we be looking poorly on Will Smith? I don't really think so. I've heard that in spite of Bill Clinton's many infidelities, that he is as popular as ever, whereas Hillary Clinton is looked down upon by many, many people. And I was looking at her documentary a while ago, and what touched me was the fact that even before anything with respect to Benghazi, apparently there was a number of people, a percentage of people out there who disliked Hillary, and it seemed it was simply because she stayed with her husband. As it turned out, they would go out into the communities, and the way that it would go would be that people would start, I guess, pillorying her and saying bad things about her, until one person would say something along the lines of, I stayed with my husband after he cheated on me, or I know a friend who stayed with their husband after he cheated on them, and then people would start looking at her differently. And I know with respect to Jada Smith's Red Table Talk, there were so many people in the comments who were saying that Will looked like he was in pain, like he was hurt, or whatever the case might be. And that might have actually crossed my mind as well. The thing about it is that clearly at the end of their Red Table Talk, it should have been established that Will was not a complete innocent, because he was saying, I want to get you back. And then Jada looks at him and like, you don't think that you already did? And he's like, he laughs and he's like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. But I think that there's a lot of ill will that is directed at Jada Pinkett Smith. And I think that Will is seen to be weaker for not dispensing with her, I guess. But honestly, the only thing that we're missing with respect to Will's side is who it is that he got entangled with. With respect to Jerry Falwell Jr., I believe is the guy's name, and his situation where he allegedly would enjoy looking at his wife having sex with someone else. There is again this idea that it weakens the man to be in a situation like that, and that the woman is the one who, like Eve, should bear the burden of whatever ill will, again, to use the word again, we could conceive of about the situation. And I think that that's really sad. I'm hoping that as more stories about things like this come to the forefront, as they inevitably will, that we can change our minds about sex, about marriage, and about how people actually continue their marriages, especially for these long extended periods of time. Will and Jada have been married like 40 something years, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe that's too long. And then the Falwell certainly have been married for a long time. But I think that one of the things that we can respect in both of these marriages is the lines of communication. I mean, these are two examples of couples who clearly have learnt, even if it's of late, to communicate their wants and desires and to find a common ground by being completely honest with each other and obviously not carrying any, well, that's probably too strong a word. And if I'm to put it in a different way, clearly these couples can communicate. And at least, Will and Jada have been very open about what's happening in their lives. So we know that they didn't always communicate. And they have pledged that there's nothing that either one of them could do that would break their bond. Now, I've questioned, because we have a real poor ability to be able to judge what we would do in different circumstances. So I'm hoping that Will and Jada beat the odds, so to speak, and that they're right, that there's nothing that one or the other could do or be in a particular situation where they would want to break their bond. But as I've said, I really do hope that these two instances might mark the tip of the iceberg with respect to a change that might be coming with respect to how we see what marriage is, women's appetite for sex, how we view that, and how we view communication, good communication about what we want from our unions, whatever they are, however long they might last. I'm not really too hopeful, because a lot of our social values have lasted for many, many, many years, hundreds if not thousands of years in many instances. So, that might be too high, an insurmountable barrier to cross. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's possible. I remember reading how the Polynesians were so, quote unquote, so promiscuous, and the missionaries had to stop them, because the idea was that if a Polynesian man and a woman, they looked at each other and they would just exchange a head nod and go do their business, whether or not they might have been married or not. And the missionaries, taught them that the missionary position was the only true position, and to stop being promiscuous. I mean, I don't think they had so many STDs in that area and in that time. So I think it was less of a danger for women, because I think it probably has less to do with any real spiritual or Christian or religious ideas, beyond the fact that sex is simply more dangerous for women than it is for men. Women receive, and as what's her name, Whitney Cummings mentioned, they have like an opened wound of sorts that they have to be careful about, whereas men's openings are much smaller. So men really don't. I think basically they were saying a woman has 5 times as much chance of catching HIV after a sexual encounter than a man. So clearly, only the I hate to use the word, most chaste of women might have survived if there was some sort of fatal STD going around. And those remaining women, they would have directed the course of how social norms would have been shaped. So, but, we have condoms and we have other things. We have actually, STD tests that we can do. So, I don't know. I just think that women, for all the advantages of being a woman, that you live longer, that people actually care if you are hurt or you live or die, there's still a number of disadvantages where women basically have to hide the fact that they enjoy sex as well. And I hope that changes. So that's it. And yeah, let's try and get rid of the isms and the phobias and all the things that prevent us from recognizing that we're all pretty much the same. Peace.